I kissed Rachel on the cheek out of habit. She smiled, that tight, over-rehearsed smile she'd been using more and more lately. The kind that doesn't reach the eyes. "Have a good day," she said, sing-songy and fake as hell. I mumbled, "You too," and grabbed my laptop bag. Walking out the front door, I had this weird sense, not quite dread, not quite déjà vu. Just something off. Like I was watching my life from behind a glass wall. Our daughters were already at school. Rachel had left early for her meeting, came back to get something she forgot, but lingered. That used to mean she cared. Lately, it just felt like surveillance. As I backed out of the driveway, she waved from the porch. I waved back, just like always. But something in me wanted to drive past the office and keep going. No destination. Just anywhere but here. But I didn't. I went to work. I always go to work. My desk was covered in post-it notes and someone else's half-eaten pastry. I didn't even notice who left it. I was on autopilot. Numbers. Charts. Forecasts. Respond to a dozen emails. Smile at Amy from marketing. Say the right things in the 10 a.m. Zoom. All the stuff I do every day, the motions. But my stomach didn't get the memo. Around 11:30, it hit. Sharp pain, low and deep. Like getting kicked from the inside. I doubled over at my desk, tried to laugh it off at first, like maybe I skipped breakfast or something stupid. But it didn't go away. I told my manager I was heading to urgent care, and for once, no one gave me grief about it. Driving there, I kept trying to distract myself. Thought about the kids' science project. Wondered if we had enough coffee at home. Tried not to replay Rachel's voice in my head. That fake sweetness. I chalked it all up to stress. Long hours. Not enough sleep. The kind of tension that creeps in slowly, one ignored moment at a time. I had no clue. No idea that I was about to hear something that would split my life clean in two. I parked outside the clinic and stared at the steering wheel for a good 30 seconds. "Just get it checked out," I told myself. "You're fine. Probably an ulcer. Maybe stress." The receptionist asked for my insurance card. The nurse took my vitals. The doctor, a guy with kind eyes and tired shoulders, asked a few questions, then ordered some tests. Still, I wasn't worried. Not really. Until he came back in, holding the chart like it was about to explode. "Alex," he said gently, "we ran a few rapid tests, and you tested positive for gonorrhea." I laughed. No, seriously, I laughed. Like he'd just told me I won a cruise and a scam email. I actually looked behind me, expecting a camera crew. "Sorry," I said, blinking. "That's impossible. I'm married." He didn't flinch. "Have you been sexually active outside of your marriage?" "No." "Are you certain your wife hasn't?" I didn't answer. I didn't move. Just sat there with my hands in my lap and a cold rush of blood leaving my face. "Sometimes," the doctor added, "people can carry it without symptoms." People? Wives. The air in the room changed. My hands felt wrong. My skin. My name. I drove home like a robot. I don't even remember turning the key in the ignition. Just white noise between then and now. And for the first time in 14 years of marriage. I wondered if I really knew the woman waiting for me behind that front door. The second time the doctor said it, he used softer words. "Alex, your test was positive. It's gonorrhea. A sexually transmitted infection." I stared at the floor. The tiles were gray with little white dots. Funny the things your brain notices when your world's collapsing. "I've never cheated on my wife," I said slowly, like I was explaining it to a stranger. The doctor nodded. Not surprised. Not skeptical either. Just calm. Like he'd heard this before. Too many times, probably. I believe you, he said. But we do recommend your partner gets tested as soon as possible. Sometimes the symptoms can be mistaken for a bladder infection or missed entirely. And that's when it hit. She didn't miss it. She hit it. Rachel. My wife. The mother of our daughters. The woman who smiled at me this morning and told me to have a good day with that fake realtor voice of hers. She gave me an STD. I didn't cry. Not there. Not in front of the nurse who gave me the antibiotics. Not in the car as I drove back to our house. But I did grip the steering wheel hard enough to make my knuckles turn white. I kept thinking, there has to be a mistake. A lab error. A mix-up. A cosmic glitch. But I'm not a stupid man. And in the absence of other possibilities, the truth stands out like a flare in the dark. She cheated. That explains the late nights. The team-building retreats. The sudden obsession with Pilates. The way she looked through me at dinner, like I was a piece of furniture she used to like but now resents. And the worst part? She didn't just betray me. She put my health on the line. She gambled with my body without asking. Without warning. I got home. The house was quiet. Rachel was still at work, or wherever she really went when she didn't want to be here. I walked straight into the bathroom and stared at myself in the mirror. I didn't look different, but I felt contaminated. Infected, not just physically, but emotionally. Like the last 15 years of my life had been retroactively poisoned. How do you explain to your parents, your kids, your friends, that the woman you built your life around gave you something you can't even say out loud without flinching? I rinsed my face and sat down on the edge of the tub. The shame wasn't mine. But damn if it didn't feel like it was. That night, I didn't tell Rachel. Not yet. I needed to be sure. I needed proof. Because if I was going to confront her, I wasn't doing it empty-handed. I was going to burn the whole lie down. One cold fact at a time. I was driving to my parents' place like I was headed to confession. My chest was tight. Not from fear, more like disbelief. Like I was about to admit something shameful, even though I hadn't done anything wrong. She had. But I was the one left holding the wreckage. Dad opened the door, mug of tea in hand, giving me that look, the one that always said, "Talk to me, son." "Something wrong?" he asked. "Yeah," I said quietly. "We should sit down." We sat at the kitchen table. Mom, without saying a word, poured me a cup of coffee. Just muscle memory. Like that was gonna fix this. "I've got gonorrhea," I said just like that. No soft entry. No preface. Silence. Dad blinked, set his cup down gently, and asked, "Are you with someone else?" "No." I looked him in the eye. "Rachel's the only woman I've ever been with." He nodded. "I believe you," he said. Simple as that. Mom looked like I'd punched her in the stomach. "Oh God," she whispered. "Rachel." I didn't respond. Didn't need to. The answer was written all over my face. Dad stood up, walked into his office, and came back with a business card. "Gina Reeves," he said, holding it out. "Family attorney. Goes to our church. Helped a friend of mine a while back. She's good." I stared at the card for a second. Plain white. Black letters. Just like the decision I'd made in that moment. "I'm divorcing her," I said. "There's no way around it." Mom reached for my hand. "I always thought Rachel was good for you," she said, her voice cracking a little. "Yeah," I nodded. "So did I. Looks like we were both wrong." On my way out, Dad hugged me tight, like I was still his little boy. "We've got your back," he said. "You're not alone." Mom just looked at me and said, We love you. And whatever you need, we're here. Back in the car, I stared at that business card in my hand. Gina Reeves. Family law. It was time to stop being shocked. Time to get to work. And tear down the lie I'd been living in. I got home and sat at the kitchen table like it was some kind of crime scene. The walls didn't look any different. The couch was still too big. The family photos were still smiling. But everything felt wrong. Like the room had heard something it shouldn't have. I had to face it now. My wife was cheating on me. There was no denying it. But I didn't want guesses. I wanted facts. Cold, hard, undeniable truth. So I did what any man in my shoes would do. I started digging. First stop, our tax folders. The ones we kept in the upstairs office, next to the printer we barely used. I pulled out the returns from the last few years, hers, mine. And I noticed something strange right away. About 7 years back, Rachel had insisted we start filing separately. Said it was smarter for deductions, better for refunds. Back then, I trusted her. Didn't even ask questions. But now I looked closer. And what I saw made my stomach drop. She had been making way more than I ever knew. Bonuses, commissions, off-the-books deals. It was all there in black and white. But barely any of it had touched our joint account. So where the hell was it going? That led me to another drawer. One I hadn't opened in years. Old envelopes, bank mailers, random utility bills. And buried under it all, a folder with a different bank's logo. One we didn't even use. Inside were statements from an account under her name only. Regular deposits. Fat deposits. $3,000 here. $7,500 there. A huge commission once for over $40,000. I flipped to the last page. The current balance was over $940,000. Just sitting there. Almost $1 million she'd saved behind my back. For a second, I actually laughed. A hollow, bitter kind of laugh. You know the one, where your brain short-circuits and humor is all it's got left. What was her plan? To vanish one day? The next morning, I met with Gina, the lawyer Dad had set me up with. She was sharp, all business. Listen carefully while I laid it out. The STD, the hidden bank account, the silence at home that suddenly made perfect sense. When I was done, she leaned forward and said, "Alex, we need to know who she's seeing and how long this has been going on." "Agreed," I said. "I want answers." She didn't hesitate. "I'll hire a private investigator. He's discreet, expensive, but very effective. Can you give me her routines? Cars, locations, passwords?" I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. She lost her phone a few months ago. I installed a GPS tracker when she got a new one. Forgot to delete it. Gina raised an eyebrow. "That's incredibly useful. Let's see." We pulled up the app. There it was, a familiar address she kept visiting every Tuesday and Thursday evening, and sometimes weekends. It wasn't her office. And it sure as hell wasn't a client's house. Gina jotted it down. "I'll send him there tonight." The next 48 hours were a blur. Work, coffee, fake small talk. My body was in the room, but my mind wasn't. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. And finally, Friday afternoon, Gina called. "Come to my office," she said. "Now!" She met me at the door with a folder in hand and a face like stone. "I have what you asked for," she said. "But I need to warn you. This isn't going to be easy to watch." Inside the folder were photos. Printed in color. High resolution. Rachel, my wife, with another man. In a parking lot. Arms around each other. Different man. Same week. Hotel lobby. Another guy, her boss, I realized with a jolt, sitting beside her at a rooftop bar. Their hands weren't exactly professional. She wasn't just cheating. She was busy. Gina handed me a flash drive. "Video and audio," she said. "Last guy she met up with was talkative." I took it home, closed the blinds, sat at my laptop, and hit play. The video was from inside a cheap motel room. Mostly audio. They talked and laughed like high schoolers on a date. Then he asked her, "You married?" Rachel chuckled. "For the moment." He laughed. "And your husband's okay with this?" "Oh God, no," she said. "He's clueless." There was a long pause. Then she said it, with this casual smugness that made my skin crawl. "He's this super religious guy. A virgin when we got married. Didn't drink, didn't smoke, didn't even know how to kiss properly. I had to teach him everything." "And now?" the guy asked. She laughed. "Now I just do my thing. I've been cheating on him since the first year. He has no idea." I just sat there, staring at the screen, not blinking, not breathing. She'd been living a double life since the beginning. All while I worked extra hours, packed the kids' lunches, planned her birthday surprises, and believed, with my whole heart, that we were a team. And to her, I was just some boring guy she could lie to and use as a cover. I called Gina. My voice was steady, but my hands were shaking. "I saw it," I said. "Are you okay?" "No," I said. "But I know what I have to do." The hardest part wasn't the betrayal. It wasn't even the humiliation of watching that motel footage or hearing Rachel talk about me like I was some sheltered idiot she got stuck with. No. The hardest part was looking at my kids and wondering if they were mine. I didn't tell them anything, of course. Just said we were going to the doctor for a quick checkup. They were laughing in the back seat, tossing goldfish crackers and arguing about whose turn it was to pick music. Meanwhile, my chest felt like it was caving in. I'd raised them, changed diapers, taught them to ride bikes, helped with math homework and Halloween costumes. But now, I needed to know. The clinic was quiet, discreet. No one asked too many questions. Buccal swabs, a few signatures, and then the waiting. 3 days. 3 nights of lying awake, staring at the ceiling, asking myself, what if? When the results came in, I opened the envelope right there in the parking lot. 99.99% match. Both of them, mine. I exhaled so hard I startled the guy in the car next to me. After that, everything clicked into place. Like a plan I didn't know I'd been building piece by piece. First thing I did was call Gina. "I want her out of the house," I said. "Good," she replied. "You're in a position to make that happen." That night, while Rachel was out, supposedly, at the gym, I packed a suitcase for her. Not everything. Just the essentials. Toothbrush. Clothes. Her favorite overpriced shampoo. Left the rest where it was. Then I signed a lease on a small furnished apartment downtown. Month to month. Paid up front. I didn't want her sleeping in the street. I'm not that guy. But I wanted her out of my home. When she came back around 9:30, hair still wet, fake smile ready, I was waiting in the kitchen. "Hey," she said, setting down her keys. "You're home early." "Sit down," I said. She hesitated, probably sensed something was off, but sat. I slid the envelope across the table. Inside, copies of the private investigator's photos, bank statements, and the motel audio transcript. She opened it, flipped through the pages. At first, her expression didn't change. Just a small, nervous smile. Then her eyes stopped moving. "Alex," she started, voice trembling. "I've already filed," I said, cutting her off. What? Divorce papers. Filed this morning. You'll get served officially in a few days. She blinked fast. Alex, can we talk about this? No. I stood up, pulled another envelope from the counter. Here's the lease. 1 bedroom. It's furnished. I paid for 2 months. Utilities included. The address is inside. Your bag's by the door. She just stared at me. Wait, you're kicking me out? Like I'm some kind of... Exactly like that, I said. You don't live here anymore. She tried to spin it. First the waterworks. Then the apologies. Then the blame game. Alex, I didn't mean for things to happen like this. You've been lying to me for over a decade, I said. You meant exactly what you did. Before she left, she asked if she could say goodnight to the kids. They're asleep, I said. They don't need to be part of this yet. Her face cracked at that. She picked up the suitcase, walked out the door. And for the first time in years, the house felt quiet in a way that didn't choke me. Over the next week, I met with Gina 3 more times. She laid out the strategy. Asset division. Full custody request. Timeline of Rachel's infidelity. Copies of the financial discrepancies. Even the GPS logs. Everything. Organized. Precise. Cold. We weren't going for revenge. We were going for clarity. And Rachel? She started texting. Calling. Can we talk? Maybe we rushed this. I miss the kids. Can I come by? But I didn't respond. Because now, this wasn't her story to control anymore. 3 days. That's how long it had been since I'd last seen Rachel. She was living in the apartment I set up. We weren't speaking. I'd gone full silent. Not out of pettiness. Not even to punish her. I just didn't have anything left to say. That night, I made dinner for the girls, spaghetti, their favorite. We played a board game after, watched half an old Disney movie, and then I tucked them in. She was supposed to stop by. To see them. She texted earlier that day. Around 7-ish, okay? But 7 passed. Then 8. Then 9. No message. No update. No call. And then, around 10:40, my phone finally rang. Unknown number. I picked up, expecting maybe a spam call or a realtor. Instead, it was the hospital. Mr. Carter? The nurse said. Your wife, Rachel, she's been in a car accident. We have you listed as her emergency contact. My heart dropped into my stomach. Is she alive? Yes. But it's serious. She was brought in by ambulance about 3 hours ago. 3 hours? Jesus. Apparently, it was a drunk driver. Blew through a red light. Hit her going 60. Her car flipped. Witnesses called 911. She'd been unconscious the entire time. I called my mom, asked her to stay with the kids. Drove straight to the hospital. Didn't even realize I still knew the way by heart. I walked into the ER and gave her name. The nurse behind the counter looked up at me with that look, the one people give you when you're about to hear something you don't want to hear. She's in the ICU, the nurse said softly. You can speak with the doctor shortly. They let me into the family waiting room. Small. Quiet. Smelled like disinfectant and bad vending machine coffee. A man in scrubs came in 10 minutes later. Mr. Carter? I stood. Yeah. I'm Dr. Hale. I'm the attending on your wife's case. He glanced at the chart in his hands, then looked me straight in the eye. She's in a coma, he said. Severe head trauma. Multiple fractures, ribs, pelvis, femur. Lacerated spleen. Her vitals are holding, but the next 24 hours will be critical. I sat down slowly, the words echoing in my ears. And, he hesitated, we ran the standard trauma panel. We're sending her blood work for confirmatory testing, but one of the preliminary markers flagged for HIV antibodies. Silence. I blinked. I'm sorry, what? It's not a confirmed diagnosis, he said quickly. It could be a false positive. It happens in trauma cases. But as a precaution, we always advise partners to get tested. Partners. I almost laughed. That word hadn't fit for a long time. I left the ICU feeling like the air had turned to soup. Coma. Broken bones. And now this. I sat in my car for a long time. The hospital parking lot was half empty. It was nearly midnight, and the silence was deafening. I didn't cry. There weren't tears left. Just a numb, slow-burning disbelief. Rachel had always said I was overcautious. Too slow to react. Too methodical. But tonight, that caution saved me. I'd gotten tested 3 weeks ago when the gonorrhea results came back. And thank God for that. Negative. Still, the idea that she may have contracted HIV and still slept next to me, kissed me, shared a home with me, without saying a word, chilled me to the bone. I drove back home in a fog. My girls were asleep, unaware that their mother was clinging to life 2 cities away. And I, the man she betrayed, the man she lied to for years, was now the only one holding the pieces of her life together. I wasn't sure what I felt. Anger? Pity? Resentment? Maybe all of it. Maybe none of it. What I knew for sure was this. The damage was deeper than I'd imagined. Not just to our marriage, but to the very idea of who Rachel was. And now, a storm she helped create might just take her down for good. I dropped the girls off at my parents' house the next morning. Didn't explain much, just that Mom wasn't feeling well and she needed some rest. Dad looked me in the eyes and nodded. He didn't press for details. Mom hugged the girls a little tighter than usual. Back at the house, I sat down with Gina, my attorney. She was already moving things forward. The divorce case was solid. Crystal clear. Infidelity. Financial deception. Emotional cruelty. And now? Potential medical endangerment. The DNA results arrived that afternoon. Both kids, mine. Seeing those numbers on paper hit different. Like part of the foundation I thought I'd lost was still there, buried under all the rubble. I wasn't just raising them. I was their father, no matter what else Rachel had poisoned. My own second test came back the next day. Negative. Clean. No infection. No long-term risk. It should have felt like a relief, and it did, but it also made me furious all over again. Because I never should have had to take the test in the first place. The hospital called later that week. Rachel was stable. Still unconscious, but no longer deteriorating. They moved her to a recovery wing, and she'd likely wake up soon. They asked if I wanted to be notified when she did. I said yes, because part of me, against all logic, still wanted to see if she'd try to lie again. I kept my promise. I found her a new apartment. Smaller, cheaper than the first one. Paid for 3 months upfront. I even moved her things from the storage unit to the place myself. Not out of kindness. Out of closure. This was me, making sure she had everything she needed, so I could finally say I didn't owe her a thing. 2 days later, I got a text from Gina. You might want to see this. Attached was a screenshot. Rachel's affair partner, Jason, the same guy she'd laughed with in that motel recording, had updated his LinkedIn. Relocating to Florida. Excited for a fresh start. No mention of her. No goodbye. Just poof, gone. I found out later that he'd blocked her on everything the moment he heard about the accident. Didn't visit. Didn't check in. The guy she'd risked it all for? The one she said was exciting, alive, everything you're not. He bailed at the first sign of real-life consequences. Her other flings? Ghosted. One was married. Another had a girlfriend. None of them were going to show up now. She was officially alone. She had no job. The company had let her go, quietly, but completely. No support from Jason. No money left in that hidden bank account. Gina had frozen it as part of the asset freeze. And her parents? They'd stopped returning her calls. Turns out they didn't love scandal when it wasn't someone else's problem. By the end of the week, she was out of the hospital and into that little apartment. She didn't text. Didn't call. I figured maybe, just maybe, she finally understood the depth of what she'd lost. Not just the marriage, but the family, the trust, the future, all of it. And me? I slept through the night for the first time in months. Woke up, made coffee, watched the sun rise over a quiet backyard, and realized I was going to be okay. The call came early in the morning. I was halfway through making pancakes for the girls. "Mr. Carter?" the nurse said. "Rachel regained consciousness about 20 minutes ago. She's alert, responsive, asking for you." I froze. Not out of fear. Just that weird kind of pause when the final act of something begins. Like turning a page and knowing exactly how the chapter ends, but reading it anyway. My parents agreed to keep the girls for the night. I packed a folder, got in the car, and drove back to the hospital. It felt like stepping into someone else's story. That hospital smell, antiseptic, distant, unnatural, hit me in the chest like a memory I didn't ask for. I walked into her room. ICU bed. Wires. 4. Her face looked pale, sunken. The bruises on her arms were yellowing now, fading. And her eyes, when she saw me, lit up like I was some kind of savior. "Alex," she whispered. "You came." I nodded. Didn't smile. Didn't sit. Just reached into my bag and pulled out the divorce documents. For a moment, I thought maybe she didn't register what she was looking at. Then she saw the header. "Petition for dissolution of marriage." Her eyes filled with tears. "Please," she said. "Can we talk? Please, just let me explain." I didn't move. "You can talk," I said quietly. "But nothing changes what comes next." The next few minutes were a blur of apologies. She cried. Told me she was scared. Confused. Broken. Said Jason had lied to her, used her, left her behind. Said her parents cut her off. Her friends disappeared. Her sister blocked her number. "I made the biggest mistake of my life," she whispered. "And I don't just mean the accident." I looked at her, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel rage, just distance. So much distance it felt like we were strangers. "I told you the truth from the start," I said. "I gave you a family, a life, loyalty." She nodded through tears. "I know. And you told other men," I continued, "that I was boring, that I was nothing, that you'd been cheating from the beginning." She covered her face. "I was stupid." "No. You were calculated," I said. "That's what hurts more." There was a pause. Then she asked the question I knew was coming. "Can I see the kids?" I shook my head. "Not now. Maybe not for a while. I've already filed for full custody." Her mouth opened like she was about to protest, but nothing came out. "I'm not punishing you," I said calmly. "But you're not stable. And after what you exposed them to, even unknowingly, I can't risk it." She looked down at the blanket. Her voice, when it came again, was barely a whisper. "Where will I go when I'm discharged?" I placed another envelope on the small table beside her bed. "A small apartment. Furnished. Rent paid for 3 months. Same building as the last one. She looked up, confused. You did that for me? No, I said. I did it for the kids. So when they ask where their mom is, I don't have to lie. The nurse stepped in a minute later. Rachel wiped her eyes and whispered, Will you visit again? I took one last look at her. Pale, thin, wrecked, and finally seeing the truth. No, I said. But your sister might, if she still wants to. Later that day, Lauren, her younger sister, called me. She didn't sound surprised by what happened. Just tired. Disappointed. I love her, she said. But I'm not bailing her out again. I told her I understood. Told her where the new apartment was. And then I hung up, not with anger, not with regret, but with finality. Rachel had woken up. But the damage she caused was wide awake too. And it wasn't going anywhere. It was raining when she signed the papers. Not some dramatic thunderstorm. No flashes of lightning. Just a quiet, cold drizzle. The kind that makes everything feel a little heavier. I met her at the attorney's office. She looked tired. Thin. Hair tied back. No makeup. Her hand shook as she held the pen. Gina sat beside me, calm as ever. Rachel's lawyer hadn't even shown. He dropped her last week. We said nothing for a long time. She flipped through the pages like she didn't understand them, but she did. The terms were clear. No alimony. Full custody awarded to me, with supervised visits, pending therapist evaluation, financial transparency, and most important, a confidentiality clause. Before she signed, she looked at me, eyes full of regret, desperation, and something else I couldn't place. You really would go public? She asked. I didn't blink. If you can test any of this, yes. I have videos, screenshots, audio, enough to destroy your reputation permanently. It wasn't a threat. It was a statement of fact. And we both knew it. She stared down at the papers, then at the pen, let out a soft breath, and signed, page by page, slowly, like she was watching her life crumble in real time. And maybe she was. Afterward, Gina handed her one last envelope. Your portion of the hidden accounts, I said. Half. Like the court will require. Her eyes widened for a second. You're giving me half? I'm blocking the funds until the divorce is finalized, I said. But yes, I'm not here to ruin you. Just to finish this. She looked confused, almost ashamed. You're a better person than I am. No, I said, standing up. I just don't want to waste any more energy hating you. She tried to say something else. I could see it forming in her throat, but I didn't wait. I left. That was the last time I saw her. Not on purpose. Not out of cruelty. Just because there was nothing left to say. Back home, the girls were in the living room building a blanket fort. They'd miss me, even though I'd only been gone a few hours. To them, life hadn't stopped. It had just reshaped. I dropped to the floor, helped them tape a flashlight inside the fort, and listened to them giggle like it was the most important sound in the world. Maybe it was. Later that night, I sat on the back porch with a beer. No texts from Rachel. No calls. No lawyer emails. No damage control. Just quiet. For the first time in months, maybe years, my body felt still. No adrenaline. No tension. Just peace. I wasn't happy. Not yet. But I was free. There's something sobering about seeing a storm wreck your life, and realizing you survived it. And not just survived. You came back stronger. Rachel lost everything trying to chase something she thought she deserved. She played with fire, and got burned. I didn't have to destroy her. She did it herself. I just walked away, holding what mattered, and never looked back. 3 months passed. It didn't feel like much, but somehow, everything was different. The fog had lifted. The day the final envelope arrived, I was sitting at the kitchen table, helping my youngest with spelling homework. My phone buzzed. A notification from Gina. Just 2 words. Cleared. Delivered. Inside the envelope was an official letter from the clinic. Negative. Confirmed. I folded it quietly and slipped it into a drawer. Not because I needed proof anymore, but because some things you keep just to remind yourself that you lived through them. The next day, Gina handed me the check. $450,000. My share of the hidden account. The one Rachel had quietly built behind my back and never expected me to see. She never touched her half. Didn't fight. Didn't protest. Maybe she finally understood. I didn't spend a dime on myself. Instead, I opened 2 custodial funds, one for each of the girls. College, housing, maybe even a wedding one day if they wanted it. I wanted them to have something solid. Something built on truth, not secrets. Rachel? She stayed quiet. Our communication was minimal, civil, and always about the kids. To my surprise, over time, the girls started opening up to her again. Not fully, not like before, but slowly. She apologized. Genuinely. Repeatedly. And I think, in her own broken way, she meant it. I never badmouthed her to them. That was a choice I made early on, not because she deserved it, but because they did. They needed a mother. Even if she wasn't the one I thought I married. One Sunday, I was at church. Just sitting in the back, sipping burnt coffee from a styrofoam cup, listening to the sermon. I didn't go every week. But something about the stillness, the simplicity of it, gave me space to breathe. That's when I met Anna. She was new in town. Widow. 1 daughter, same age as my youngest. We talked for a bit after service, casual stuff at first. But there was a softness to her. A kind of calm I hadn't felt in a long time. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She didn't ask what I did for a living. She just asked how I was. Like she actually wanted to know. 1 coffee turned into 2. Then a walk. Then a phone call just to say goodnight. No drama. No games. Just quiet, steady presence. Tonight, we're going on our first real date. The girls are at my parents' house. Sleeping bags, popcorn, cartoons. I stood by the front window for a second before heading out. Looked around the house. The same walls, but somehow, everything feels new. My phone buzzed. A text from Anna. See you soon. I'm wearing red. Just so you don't miss me winky face. I smiled. Not because everything was perfect. Not because all the pain disappeared. But because I'm still here. Still standing. And for the first time in a long, long time, I believe again. Not in Rachel. Not in fairy tales. But in myself. And in life.